Hey, everybody. How are ya? I am enjoying an quiet evening at home alone. And I just made myself a drink, and I haven't done a little cocktail chat in a while. I used to do cocktail chats all the time where I would like make drinks and teach you how to make drinks and then have a little conversation. And I haven't done that in a while. So I'm not teaching you how to make a drink, but I will tell you this is a really yummy one. So I guess I am sort of doing a cocktail chat because they would always start with recipes for how to, make an amazing cocktail. This is Hey Parisa. I'm going to be making this weekend we're having an SE class here in my house this weekend, energetic synthesis of structural embodiment. I will make you one of these if you would like it. This is one of my new concoctions that I love. It's bourbon with pomegranate and rose. It's so good. It's pomegranate liqueur and rose nectar and rose syrup and lemon and orange peel, and it's really good. It's light for a bourbon drink. It's really light. So take a little sip. Oh my God, it's so good. So good. It's funny. I was craving this particular flavor. And I was like, I don't have any pomegranate liqueur. And I almost went to buy some. And then I was like, no, I'm not going to leave my house. And then I opened up my liquor cabinet and I did have pomegranate liqueur. So I was happy. So anyway, I want to, hello, everybody that's joining me. Thanks for being here. I told this story today. I'm doing I finished a 3-part call series today called Out of Need and Into Succeed. It was an amazing series. And I told this story in that series, and I wanted to tell it here because it really speaks to me about how incredibly aware we are. And so many of us are just way more aware than we think we are. Like, we are aware. I've noticed that for myself, like, that I'm more psychic than I've ever been. And most of us are actually, well, a lot of people who are seekers in the world, have a different point of view about things, have a lot of psychic capacities that they don't even realize that they have. And this has been showing up for me a lot lately, where I like get a text noise and I know exactly who it is and what it's about, or I think about somebody and then they text me or whatever, those kinds of little things. And the thing about, it's like, we all have this incredible psychic capacity. And when you recognize it and you acknowledge it, you actually can use it you can really harness it in your life and use it to create so much more than you've ever created before. So it's pretty cool what shows up when you're willing to acknowledge how psychic you are and how it shows up, and then really start to use it, like extrapolate with it and use it for creation, and because that's always the funnest thing for me to, like, my favorite thing to do is to create. Like this drink that I made that I'm going to take a sip of right now. I'm psychic. I actually am psychic with my cocktails. Somehow I must have been like a bartender or a mixologist in another lifetime, because I'm like, I think these things would go really well together. And then I just sort of make a drink and then it's really good. I don't have any experience. I mean, I don't have people are like, oh, did you used to be a bartender? And I'm like, no, not in this lifetime. So I just kind of know what works, I guess. So, and this really works. So here's my funny story, and it's funny and it's trippy. And anybody that was on my call today heard it already. But so I was flying home last night. I was flying home from Houston and from the Symphony of Possibilities. Jay. Yeah. It's, I don't know if you heard what it is. I know you like, it's bourbon and pomegranate and rose. It's so good. It's so good. So anyway, I'm like, it's always weird when I make a cocktail and then I go on Facebook Live because the ice melts, it's better to have like a martini, but I don't. So, oh well. We should put like a big old fashioned ice cube in it. They don't melt as fast. So here's my story. So I'm getting on the plane last night, and I had for once in my life I like consciously packed very light. Like I hardly ever pack light. It's never a priority for me to pack light. I like to take all my stuff with me because I travel so much. But I was like, for this trip, I'm going to try something different, and I'm going to pack really light so I can just carry on my bag and not have to deal with baggage claim and all the stuff. So I've got my, roller thingy, and getting on the plane. There's a lady sitting in the aisle of the seat of the row that I'm in. And I go to pick up the bag to put it up in the overhead. Now, normally that's really easy for me. And I just go doop, doop, doop. And it doesn't matter how heavy it is. Like that, it has nothing to do with how heavy the bag may or may not be. I'm strong. And I love, I do a lot of physical activity. So it's all stuff like that. I'm so weird because stuff like that actually is fun for me. Like it feels good for my body. I enjoy using my muscles, so normally I bend down, I pick it up and I'm like, woo, I get to lift some weights and put it up, boop, no problem. Okay. So I go to get my bag last night and I'm like, whoa, this is so weird. Like I can barely pick the thing up. And I'm like, and it was like super awkward. And I kept thinking it was going to fall on the head of the lady next, in the aisle. And I'm like, oh my God, this thing's going to fall. Like I'm going to drop this. And I'm like, okay, I gotta shit. And at some point I put my own head underneath it to try to get it up into the thingy because I was like, I really don't want to drop this on this lady. And what is going on here? I was literally just like, what is happening? Because it's like I have no muscles, and I was just like, what is it? And so what I did was I asked a question, which is, I love this question. What is this? I was like, what is this? This is so strange that I would have such a hard time getting my bag up into the overhead. And I was like, for a minute, I was like, oh, I usually fly on the other side of the plane. Maybe it was that. I was like, no, that's ridiculous. So I put it up there, sat down. So the lady next to me starts talking to me, the lady that was in the aisle. I'm in the middle seat. And thankfully not for long because nobody sat next to me. Hi, Robert. So I sit down and this lady starts talking to me. And she's asked me about my yoga because I was wearing yoga pants. She asked me about my yoga pants and we started talking about yoga. And she tells me, oh, I used to be a yoga instructor and I can't do that anymore because I have an injured cervical spine. And I'm like, oh. And she says, yeah. Here's where it gets funny. She says, yeah, somebody dropped their suitcase on my head. On a plane. And I'm like, of course somebody dropped their suitcase on your head. That makes perfect sense to me because I almost did the same thing. I didn't say that, but I was chuckling inside. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. It was like, I was completely aware of this woman's world. There's laughs and wows. This is so good. Oh, I love it. Yeah, I was totally aware of this woman's world when I was putting my suitcase up. And here's the thing is this woman, I watched her after that, and every single person that walked by her, she was like, and some guy kind of bonked his backpack into her head, and everybody that put their suitcase up, she was like, yeah, exactly. Still psychic, Lorraine, still psychic. And every single time that someone would walk by or whatever, she was freaking out about it. And I watched this whole, and even this, the guy like bonked her with his backpack. And it was like, of course he's going to bonk you with his backpack because you are expecting this to happen, And this is the thing, is like, we are so powerful, when we have projections and expectations about things, they show up, and this woman was like waiting. And the funny thing is she's actually a flight attendant. So she deals with a lot of bags and overhead compartments, but she has this point of view that someone dropped a bag on my head before, it's going to happen again. I need to prevent it, and this is so much of how we live our lives. And I could spend a lot of time talking about that alone, because it's a huge thing that we do, where we have a projection and an expectation of something, and you set the stage for that thing to happen. You kind of like set the wheels in motion for that to happen, even if you, like think that you don't want it to happen. And so what was so interesting is I saw how, like the one guy that bonked her with his backpack, it was like, he was kind of like energetically, this is all energetic, right? He was kind of like, well, sure, I'll bonk you in the head with my backpack if that's what you want, totally energetic. For me, I was like, I'm not doing that, and I didn't even know what was going on cognitively, but energetically, I was like, I'm not dropping a bag on somebody's head. That's not something I want to do, but it was also kind of like, when I saw it afterwards, I was like, she was waiting for it. Like she was projecting and expecting that at me with a level of intensity, and kind of like, because that's her point of view about life, right? So, great thing to look at. Like, where do you do that? How do you do that in your life? Like, project and expect that people are going to do all these things, and then guess what? They do, we create our own reality. It's crazy. We are that powerful that we create our own reality. But what was even cooler for me about it is I was like, I'm not participating in your shenanigans, lady. It was like, I'm aware. And this is all energetic. This is all energetic. None of this is verbal. None of this is cognitive. She doesn't even know, but I was aware of it. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, I know that the whole scenario here wants this thing to fall, and I'm not doing that. I'm putting my head underneath it. I'm putting so that I can get underneath it to shove it into the thing. I was just like, I'm not going to create that. And this is the thing. This is like the moment that I wanted to speak to here, because we are so psychic. We do not even realize how psychic we are. We are so psychic. We do not realize how psychic we are. We do not realize how psychic we are, ever. You're constantly picking up on the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions of everybody within, at least 1,000 miles. And we have no idea. And we think it's ours. We think we need to do something with it. Or, I could have gone into a whole thing of like, oh gosh, I must be getting old and I'm not strong, but luckily I was like, what the fuck was that? Like, cause I know for me, one of my capacities is I have a lot of capacities with my body. And I was like, that's not my reality. Like, getting old and weak is not something, that's not my reality. Like, I'm not going to do that, So I was like, that's not my world, Had I been more prone to that as a point of view, I would probably have been like, oh my gosh, I'm really strong. I'm really getting weak and I need to do something about, we all do that, where we like create this whole universe and then we're like, oh, I need to do something about this now. And I probably need to lift more weights but beautifully enough, like this woman told me what her deal was. And I went, oh, I just went, okay, cool. That whole thing just like unraveled for me. And the cool thing is that I I'm like so clear about what my reality is that I'm like, I no, I like you might have the strength of projection and expectation, you know, but when you're so because people are constantly projecting and expecting stuff at us, as I've said, right? And then, but when you have the strength of what your reality is and what's true for you, then that overrides that. It supersedes that. And that's exactly what I did last night on the plane is I was like, even though I didn't know exactly what was going on until later, I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And her projections and expectations were very strong, but my reality was a lot stronger, you know. And had I even had the point of view of like, I'm getting old and weak, then I might have dropped it on her head. It might have been like my capacity to do whatever I did, to override and supersede her projections and expectations might not have been as strong. And so this is where it's like you want to like I just wanted to share this because there's so many different pieces to it, and it's just a hilariously bizarre, wonderful, funny story that exemplifies a lot as like from what I can see, and it was such a moment for me of like, yeah, no, that like I really am committed to my reality. And I'm also really committed to always knowing that I'm aware. I always knowing that I'm aware and recognizing the awareness that I have and acknowledging it. And so as soon as I heard that story, I went, yep, that's exactly what I was aware of, because I had asked, what is this? I had asked that, what is this? And I didn't think I wasn't waiting for like an answer. I wasn't waiting for, any sort of like response. It was like, what is this? And then, 30 seconds later, I found out what it was because she told me, which is how it works, but sometimes it's not 30 seconds later. Sometimes it's the next day or week or year or whatever, or you never really have a cognitive sense of something, but you kind of, the energy changes or whatever. And this is to me like the X-Men universe. And so X-Men, a lot of you guys know X-Men. It's a body of work in access consciousness that is this incredible exploration. And there's classes. There's 1-day X-Men classes and 2-day X-Men classes. I'm doing a 2-day X-Men class, but it's over 4 days. Ha 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 ha. Starting tomorrow. But it's 2.5 hours a day over 4 days. And there's a lot of other amazing facilitators that do these classes. But the X-Men universe it's this universe. It's where you are an energetic being. Like that's your reality. You're an energetic being moving through the world, always aware of energy more than you are, like more than anything. You're always aware of energy, always. And and we don't realize that. Nobody talks to us about that as we are growing up. Like nobody like lets us in on that like very key piece of information. You are aware of all the energies around you at all times. Always, and you don't actually you don't have to cognitively know like everything that is showing up, because one of the characteristics of X-Men is that they're such a speed of X-Men function from such a speed, I would say speed and space. Like there's a lot of spaciousness, a lot of speed of space. That may not always feel spacious to you because you might have a million things going on in your world, which is a very common thing for X-Men. For me, I've always got a million things going on in my world. And one of the beautiful gifts of this conversation is I've really, over the years of, playing with these tools and taking the classes and then facilitating the classes and exploring the X-Men universe really, and what's true for me, and exploring myself as an energetic being, is recognizing I'm always aware of a million things at one time, at least a million things. And they're occurring simultaneously. There's no distinction between past, present, and future. They're occurring with a rapidity of like a rapid fire kind of, movement. And I'm also aware of like everybody on the planet, so there's this like immensity of awareness and this simultaneity of awareness that X-Men have that is not something that anybody ever talks to us about. And that's that's just one of those things that, like, I know my first X-Men conversation, it changed my whole world, because I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I started to really see, I was like, that and that and that and that. I started to see all these places where I had decided I was wrong, or I was weak, or I wasn't strong, or I was fucked up, or whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh, no, this is my capacity. Like, this is, and so yesterday, like last night, I was like, yeah, I knew that about you before I even knew that about you, because that's one of my capacities. I'm psychic, my body picks up on everybody else's stuff, Now, the thing is when you recognize that, and that in advance, it's not like I would have known. I would have gone, this lady obviously is fearful that something's going to fall on her head. Maybe, maybe not. That's not the point. But when you realize that there's this massive universe that you're always aware of, that you don't have words for, you don't have cognition for, you don't have a description for, you don't have an explanation for, you could never put it into words because it's too fast and too all encompassing. Like, there's too much going on there for you to put it into words. Then you can start to function from the speed and the elegance and the energetic being that you are, and the like, and you like take up space as this creature in the world that's like, yeah, I'm aware of all y'all, I'm aware of everything and all of you, and past, present, and future, and none of it's a problem. And I get to use all of it to my advantage. I get to use all of it to create something greater. I get to actually see all of these things as my strongness, my superpower, my capacities, like the brilliance of me in the world. And it's so cool, because it's one of these conversations that I'm so grateful for, because it gets like, it's such a like treasure, to, because it gets us out of, it gets, for me, it's like, I've developed this muscle of what I call like flipping it, like constantly. Anytime I'm in judgment of myself, which is, we judge ourselves a lot. X-Men judge themselves a lot because they're different creatures in the world. There's nothing to compare yourself to. You are a completely different creature. So it's easy to see that as a wrongness, because you're like, you look around and you're like, well, I don't seem to match anybody around here, but that's because you are unique, and that's a gift. But one of the things that X-Men do is they go to the wrongness of that. Well, what if you could, every time you go to the wrongness, every time you go to the judgment of you could just turn it on its head and be like, wait a minute, what's the brilliance here? What's the capacity here? What is the awareness here? What am I aware of? What is this? Which is what I asked last night. What is this? Why can't I get this fucking suitcase in the overhead? This is different. Like, and it was like so awkward. I mean, my body was just like, like I couldn't just boop like I normally do. And I want to say, like, what a testament to the greatest thing about X-Men, which is that we be oneness. We have this capacity to be oneness, and to perceive that and live it and know it and have it and function from that, which is so required in this world right now, and such a gift to the world. But we don't, we're always looking for the wrongness and at the wrongness of that. The sort of like, the side of that, the sort of shadow side of that, is that when you have this capacity to be oneness and perceive oneness and have all these, like have this space that you be, you can use it dynamically against you as well, because it's, it's where we make our bodies sick, and we compromise our bodies, and we compromise our lives, and we like go into the universes of everybody else to try to heal them, because we can be aware of them, because we have this amazing capacity, and we're like, it's okay, everybody, but that ultimately diminishes, diminishes everything that you can be, everything that you can create, everything that your body is, all those things. And so when you can start to see, like, really kind of exercise this muscle of like, whoa, what's the brilliance of me here? Whoa, there we go. There I go, being brilliant again. Oh my gosh. Whoa, I knew all of that, like I did listen. I went, oh yeah, I knew. Okay, great. Now I'm going to go move over to the next seat and fall asleep, but it's like we give ourselves the gift of this like speed of movement and fluency, and not having to dive into a lot of like feelings and emotions, which are also something that X-Men suck at doing, because they don't make a lot of sense. Like feelings and emotions don't make a lot of sense to X-Men. It's more, we function way more from being, knowing, perceiving, and receiving, like the space of an infinite being. And we have to bend, fold, staple, and mutilate ourselves so dynamically to not have that, so that we can fit into this reality that doesn't make any sense to us, rather than actually being like, hi, everybody, I'm so different and I'm so great. And maybe there's a different reality for all of us here. And what is it that you uniquely know about that as an X-Men, as a humanoid, as a different creature on the planet? What is it that you uniquely know about all of that? And, oh, Robert, thank you. Thank you for the gift that you be as well. I'm very grateful for you. Yeah. So there's a whole universe of freedom and intimacy with you, and honoring of you, and gratitude, and allowance, and vulnerability, and trust. Those are the elements of intimacy from Access Consciousness. But like having that space with you where you're like, yep, I was just aware. I'm not getting old. I'm not getting weak. I'm not, trying to do something horrible to another person. I'm just aware. Here I am, aware again, aware again, aware again. And these little reminders, however, like sort of anecdotal and, maybe sort of trivial in a way, they may be, but they're not, because they show, like, for me, it's like, yep, that's another reminder. I'm really freaking aware, and when you get out of the wrongness of that, the way that you can use that is just absolutely stunningly, phenomenally beautiful. And you can really begin to create your life in a completely different way from that space, which is just so cool. Cause that's really, I'm like, please, X-Men of the world, bring it on, like create, please, let's create a different reality. We definitely are. And how does it get better, and what else is possible, and more, please, more, please, more, please. So just a little ditty for y'all on this lovely Monday evening. And you are also welcome if you're inspired and you're like, I want more X-Men. We start with my X-Men Disabilities or Abilities class tomorrow, Tuesday, August 16th. I can't even see anymore. I'm like, I've changed so much, I can't see. August 16th, 9 a.m. Pacific time, 10 o'clock Mountain time in Colorado, where I am, and 6 p.m. CET. We're going to be on for 2.5 hours each day for the next 4 days, exploring the universe of X-Men. One of my favorite classes, one of my favorite conversations, just to watch people melt out of the judgment of themselves and into the brilliance that they actually be, that they've always been, and they've never been invited to be. And you just look at every wrongness that's been defined in this reality, and you're like, well, that's different, and that's different, and I'm different, and that's great, and I'm great. It's really, really cool. So, you're welcome to join us. And if you see this later, we will, do more. And there's lots of other brilliant facilitators that do them as well. And we will probably leave registration open past, like, if you could join before the second day on Wednesday, if you have time to listen to the first day, kind of a thing. So yeah, how does it get better? How cool are you that you've never acknowledged? How aware are you that you've never acknowledged? And what else is possible? And what if actually everything that goes through your world is awareness? It's always awareness. It's very, very, very rarely yours. You're an energetic being who's very aware. What if that could be your greatest superpower and your greatest gift? And what if you could create phenomenons with that? That's the world that I would like to live in. So thank you for you. Thank you for being here. Grateful for you all. Cheers with my pomegranate rose thing-a-ling. If you're coming to Essie this weekend, I'll make you one. Yeah. Have fun with you. Enjoy you. We're changing the world, everybody, and I am so grateful for each and every one of you. Bye.